Hi guys, welcome to part 2 of my update on Tropical Storm Isaac. I'm Stephen Boyle. Well, after after figuring out of doing this a couple times, what I'm going to do is I am going to make yet one more part to this video. The second part will be about um, the European model and why it changed. That was really the determining factor of why I didn't think that this would go up the East Coast. Also, you will see my projected path and and the path that I will take. And actually, what happened here was because there's been so many times I've been messing up with this. The model's actually updated. It's about 11 o'clock right now, which is quite after my first one. But the model's updated, and they actually are saying a lot of the same things here. So I am quite happy. So what you will be seeing, it will be a little bit outdated, but overall, I think it's fairly close to what the models are saying at this particular point as well. Okay, so without a further ado, these are the models. Okay, and overall, they're all saying the same thing. However, there are a few models down here that are saying a couple different things. Okay, they are saying that it will go into the Gulf of Mexico, which at this particular point is definitely not being ruled out. I mean, I think that there's a likelihood that it could move into the Gulf of Mexico. What are the chances of it going up the East Coast and affecting us here in New England? Well, it could affect us here in New England, but it's not going right up the East Coast. I can tell you that right now. It will not ride up the East Coast. So it's not going to take a track like this. Nope. Not going to happen. It definitely could turn after it hits land towards New England and give us heavy rain. That I think might happen. But it's not going to ride up the coast and then hit us here in New England. Not going to happen. Most likely not. So, here is what's going on. We have several models indicating the same thing. So, overall, I believe the west coast of Florida could be impacted by this particular system. There are only 3 models at this point indicating that this will affect the east coast of Florida. So, if you're listening in from Florida, if you live on the west coast, particularly if you live in southern Florida, I would say you might want to get ready. Okay, so, but this is not the time to panic because this is out almost 5 days. And there was one hurricane that hit Florida that was actually wrong and changed 6 hours in advance. Okay, it changed 6 hours in advance. So, again, there's still a lot that needs to be worked on. So, if models can be wrong 6 hours in advance, then 5 days in advance, yeah, I think you get my drift. So, overall, this is what they're saying right now, but could it change tomorrow? Could it change in a few days? Could it change? Yes. Okay, that's why I just want everyone to know that this is not etched in stone, but this is what the models are saying at this particular point. Intensity. Well, overall, a lot of the models are indicating that this thing will strengthen. Okay, and actually there's a lot of models that are indicating that this will become a Category 2 hurricane. However, there are some models that are actually saying that this thing may not even become a hurricane either. So, this is where things get a little tricky. So, before we get into specifics here, you want to look at the general trend before you start determining anything. Now, if you look at this here, there's a few things that I'm looking at here. There's some models that are indicating that this will go in an upward direction. Some of the models are saying that this will be more of a flattened direction, more something like this. And then there's some models that are saying that it will actually weaken from here on in. And then there's models that are really saying that this thing is going to weaken. So what you want to do is you want to look in between these arrows and see really where you have the highest concentration of models. And at this particular point, it seems like in here somewhere. Really in here. So at this particular point, this leads me to believe that the intensity of the hurricane will of the storm will probably be anywhere between a Category 2 to a very strong tropical storm. Okay, now, is it possible that we could continue to see an increase in intensity? Oh yeah, it's definitely possible, especially if the track is something more along the lines what the European has been thinking. Definitely. But at this particular point, based upon what the consensus of the models are saying, it would most likely become a Category 1 or 2, and then it would most likely weaken to a strong tropical storm and may even strengthen yet again. So that's what I'm thinking is going on here. So now here's the GFS ensembles, and this is actually very, very interesting. If you notice, for right now, most of the GFS ensembles indicate that this will hit Florida. There are very few models, very few and far between, that are actually saying that this thing will ride up the East Coast. And the ones that do, they have it really hidden. They actually have original landfall in southern Florida, then riding up the east coast of Florida, then going back out to sea, and then going up like this. So even still, most of the models have at least some form of landfall in Florida. So very, very important aspect here. Now, note how many models are indicating that this will eventually come into New England. Okay, this is important because the rains associated with this system could be quite intense. Okay, and this could, even though by the time it reaches to us, it'll most likely be a depression or just an area of low pressure, it's still going to affect our weather, and it's still going to contain tropical rains because this is an area of strong low pressure, and it takes a while for areas of low pressure to weaken. So overall, you can see a lot of the models indicate that this will be eventually affecting New England. So first it hits Florida, goes through the southeast, and then comes up here into New England. Okay, and there's also, when I talk a little, so here's the GFS ensembles, and actually what's very interesting is we have that, I want to actually look at another one here. This is the AP03 model, probably the one that's closest to what the European is saying, and very interesting, very, very interesting. It is this model that has, it is the AP03 model, the one that's more in line with what's going to happen with the European, that has it being the strongest. Note how it has it plateauing off a little bit at a Category 2 storm. And overall, though, most of the GFS ensembles are indicating that this thing will be a Category 1 storm. Okay, but first of all, let's look at the trend, and overall the trend is increasing in intensity, and then once it makes landfall, decreasing in intensity. Now, why is that? Why does a storm decrease in intensity when it hits land? Well, very simple. When a storm hits land, it encounters friction. Yes, friction. Yeah, a word from physics class. It encounters friction with the land. So the storm, the pressure, because again, storms have low pressure, the pressure starts increasing because of that friction. So generally, what will happen is that storm system will start to weaken. Now, maybe not the precipitation that the storm holds, but the pressure and the winds will start increasing. Well, the increase in pressure causes a decrease in winds. Also, the increase in pressure can ultimately cause a decrease in precipitation. So essentially, that's what happens here, and that is the physics to weather. That's one of the things that how physics goes into weather, and there's a lot of it. So this was my second part of my video. Although I still have about another 5 minutes left that I could use up, I'm not going to, because I want enough time to talk a little about the European model. There's also something else I want to mention. And also, I want to have time to be able to talk about my track. So what we're going to do is, this will be the end of part number 2. Please come back for part number 3, as I will be giving off my thoughts about the European model and also my final thoughts on Isaac with this particular update. I hope you stay tuned for that.